10 episodes. We kicked off with a slave who said, "Control what you can." We waded through the darkest pits of pessimism, and now we've landed somewhere totally different. Alan Watts stared at the same universe that made Tioran want to disappear, and saw something else entirely. He said, "You're not just a drop in the ocean, you're the whole ocean in a drop. You're not a tiny speck, you're the universe checking itself out through your eyes." Alan Watts flips everything we've talked about in this series upside down. Alan Watts was an Englishman who became an Episcopal priest, then quit after his marriage went up in flames. He moved to San Francisco. He drank too much. He taught Eastern philosophy to Westerners who'd never heard of it. And he shook things up. He called himself a spiritual entertainer, not a guru, not a master, an entertainer. He said, "I'm not selling you anything. I'm just waking you up to what you already are." Alan Watts's philosophy isn't about changing into something. It's about realizing who you already are. You've heard Alan Watts's voice. Those compilation videos with stock footage and chill music. They're lovely. But they don't tell you who he was. They don't explain the ideas behind the voice. This isn't one of those videos. This is Mindscape Philosophy. 10 episodes of Western philosophy brought us here. Today, the man who said you're already enlightened, you just forgot. Watts was born in 1915 in a small town outside London. His mother taught him to appreciate beauty. As a teen, he stumbled on Zen Buddhism books. He was hooked. While other kids kicked footballs, Alan Watts was trying to crack the meaning of existence. In 1951, he moved to San Francisco and started teaching at the American Academy of Asian Studies. This was before hippies, before beats, before any of it. Watts was explaining Buddhism, Taoism, and Zen to Americans who had never heard the words before. He started a radio show called Way Beyond the West on KPFA in Berkeley. For 20 years, every week, folks tuned in to hear this Englishman with a velvet voice explain why they were already the universe. The recordings that made him famous? Most came from those radio lectures. He became pals with the beat poets, Allen Ginsberg, Jack Kerouac. He was the philosopher of the counterculture, but also its critic. When everyone else was dropping acid, Watts was writing books about why the ego is an illusion. The party was all around him. He was figuring out why anyone needed a party at all. Here's the idea. You think you're a person, a self, an ego inside your head looking out at the world. Watts said this is an illusion. There's no separate self. You're not in the universe. You are the universe. Like how a wave isn't in the ocean. The wave is the ocean. He said, "We don't come into this world. We come out of it like leaves from a tree. The tree doesn't put leaves into the world. The tree grows leaves. The same tree, the same universe. You're what the universe is doing right here, right now. This isn't poetry." Watts meant it literally. You're a pattern of the universe. Like a whirlpool is a pattern of the river. The whirlpool seems separate. It has a name, a shape, but it's just the river, doing something interesting for a while. You're the universe, doing something interesting for a while. And when you actually feel this, not think it, feel it, everything changes. The anxiety of being a separate self dissolves. You stop worrying about your life like a wave stops worrying about existing. The wave was never in danger. It was always the ocean. Watts called this the backwards law. The more you try to be happy, the less happy you are. The more you try to control life, the more out of control it feels. The more you try to be yourself, the less yourself you become. Stop trying. You already are, he said. Muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone. Your mind is the same. You don't find clarity by wrestling your thoughts. You find it by letting them settle. Stop stirring, just watch. Alan Watts's meditation isn't about doing, it's about stopping. Pause for a second. You can find Watts's voice on hundreds of compilation channels. You can find the backwards law in any summary. But what do you actually do with this? Watts introduced the West to an ancient Chinese concept, Wu Wei. It means non-doing, not laziness, not passivity. action without forcing, like a bird flying. The bird doesn't force itself into the air. It spreads its wings and the air carries it. That's Wu Wei. That's trusting the universe. Most of your suffering comes from trying to force things that would happen naturally if you got out of your own way. You try to force sleep and stay awake. You try to force happiness and feel miserable. You try to force love and push it away. Wu Wei says, stop forcing. Let the river flow. This isn't giving up. Watts was clear on that. Wu Wei isn't passivity. It's action that comes from alignment rather than effort. The archer who releases the arrow at the right moment, not forcing, not hesitating, just releasing. That's the art of living. Watts said, trust the universe. Not because the universe is nice, not because everything works out, but because you are the universe. Trusting the universe is trusting yourself, not your ego, not your thoughts, the deeper self, the one that knows how to breathe without being told. Watts didn't live his philosophy perfectly. He drank too much. He battled his own demons. He died of heart failure in 1973 at 58. He never claimed to be enlightened. He said, I'm not a guru. I'm just a philosophical entertainer. A man who found some clarity and shared it. You wake up, check your phone. The notifications have already decided what you should worry about today. Watts would say, you're letting the world tell you what to think. Turn it off. Sit in silence for 5 minutes. Let your mind settle. You're not your thoughts. You're the space in which thoughts appear. You feel like you're falling behind. Everyone else has it figured out. Watts would laugh. He said, the meaning of life is just to be alive. It's so plain and so obvious and so simple. And yet, everybody rushes around in a great panic as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. You try to control everything. Your career, your relationships, your future. Watts said, the only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance. You can't stop the river. You can only learn to swim. You worry about death. Watts wasn't afraid. He said, try to imagine what it will be like to go to sleep and never wake up. Think about that. It's one of the most wonderful things in the world. It's the promise that all this, the pain, the struggle, the beauty, will one day be over, and that's why it matters. Watts had 7 children from 3 marriages. He wasn't a monk. He wasn't a saint. He was a complicated man who thought deeply about existence and lived messily. That's exactly why his philosophy matters. It doesn't require you to be perfect. It just requires you to wake up. He spent his final years in a small cabin in Druid Heights, Marin County, a community of artists and thinkers. He walked the hills. He drank wine. He wrote. And he recorded the lectures that would become the voice millions of people would come to know. The voice that tells you everything is already okay. 3 practices. 1. The morning stillness. Before you check your phone, sit. 5 minutes, no goal, no meditation app. Just sit. Let your mind be muddy water. Let it settle. Alan Watts' meditation is not about achieving anything. It's about stopping the effort to achieve. 2. The Wu Wei check. Notice one thing today you're forcing. A conversation, a decision, an outcome. Ask, what would happen if I stopped forcing this? Not gave up. Stopped forcing. There's a difference. Let it unfold. 3. The ocean reminder. Once today, stop and say, I'm not in the universe. I'm the universe. A temporary pattern. A wave that will return to the ocean. And that's not sad. That's the most beautiful thing there is. Watts brought the East to the West. But he was a translator, not the source. The source is older, deeper. A philosophy that's been guiding people for 2,500 years. Lao Tzu. The Tao Te Ching. Wu Wei before Watts made it famous. The philosophy of the Tao, the way that cannot be named. The water that overcomes the stone. The wisdom that has outlasted empires. That's next time on Mindscape Philosophy. Subscribe so you don't miss it. This is Mindscape Philosophy. Tomorrow morning, 5 minutes of stillness. That's your Wu Wei. That's your ocean. See you next week.